Welcome to Poker House Fort Worth live stream. This is what I'm streaming right now. The Road to Vegas $10,000 main event seat championship. That's right. A $10,000 main event seat will be given away to one of these 9 players as we tune in here. And Mike is drawing for a button here as we do a new draw for the final table. And you will I'll turn the table down a little bit as I'm still standing there giving the table some direction there. But yeah, that's it. $10,000 main events that you're going to be giving away here at the end of this stream, playing down to 1. We already had one fantastic winner in the random seat drawing. Gary Finley. If you've checked out our Facebook, you can see the post with him. Fantastic colored character here. He's just amazing here in the room. Plays in all of the free roll tournaments. Like I said, Gary, big congratulations to him for the $10,000 seat into the World Series of Poker main event. It was definitely a bucket list item for him. He said that he had been to Vegas, been to the World Series, but never played in the main event. Of course, it's a $10,000 ticket, so I don't blame him. But he was the random seat drawing winner of all the participants. There was 104 players that went through yesterday to get down to these final 9. It was a long day. They had all accrued chips over the last 3 months. And interesting fact, just 2 out of the top 10 chip leaders, have made it to this final table. I do know that one of the gentlemen at the final table here, I'll get his name here shortly. He got into the tournament with just 4,000 in chips. And I believe he got it all in the first hand that he actually played and doubled up and went from there all the way to the final table. So that was pretty exciting to hear about whenever they were letting me know that anybody had a chance, just like the 200K that I talked about earlier on or the 20K earlier on live stream, the $20,000 free roll tournament with the qualifiers. Doesn't matter how many chips you qualify with; it's about how lucky you can get even if you have a short stack. So you always want to participate in these types of events because you never know what could happen. Yeah, they should be getting started here shortly. We do have a 15-minute delay, so I started up the stream here, and the first hand should be coming out here shortly. So I'm going to let you guys take a look at what we have coming up here on Tuesday, the $50,000 guaranteed Summer Jam. That's a $65 tournament that's starting this Tuesday. I just can't say enough about it. $65 for a $50,000 guaranteed tournament that's going to be starting this Tuesday, and that's going to be at Poker House Fort Worth and at Poker House Peaks in just a couple days. I feel like I'm going to take a breath after this and then start right back into another major tournament because this one's going to be fantastic. See, only $65 for a $50,000 guarantee. Again, that kicks off at both locations this Tuesday. Day after tomorrow at 6 p.m. And we're going to have 8 flights, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 6 p.m. On Friday, we'll have a noon and a 6 p.m. flight, and the same on Saturday, noon and 6 p.m. And then late Saturday night at 10 p.m., we're going to have a turbo tournament. So if you are a night owl, or if you're wanting to try to get that second bag, or maybe even that third bag for the $500 instant bonus, maybe that turbo is the one where you do it at. So you're going to want to play in as many flights as you can. 2 bags, best 2 bags forward. The triple bag bonus of $500. Long story short, what that means is you play at as many flights as you can. Whatever you make it into the top 8%, 8% will bag forward to day 2. 12% cash, 8% move forward. If you make it into that top 8%, your chips carry forward to day 2. Then you want to do it in another flight, and you get to combine those bags. And if you do 3 of them, that is a triple bag bonus. So we'll talk more about that But let's get right into the action here. The first hand has gone out for the final table here at Poker House Fort Worth for the Road to Vegas $10,000 main event. And Kevin G ships it right in the beginning here with pocket tens right off the bat. Let's hear some of the table talk. And there's not going to be much of it with these guys with $10,000 on the line. See if anybody gives him a call. Nobody does. So Kevin G getting him some blinds there, much needed. The blinds are 6,000, 12,000 with a 12,000 chip ante. So looking at some of these chip stacks, we've got Ray A, 663,000 in chips. He is our chip leader in seat number 9. Matthew M, 543,000. Matthew G, we're going to have to differentiate those two guys, 413. John B, 232. Jonathan behind him. Gosh, got Jonathan, Matthew. You think I'd have noticed this when I was handing out all these chips. David S, 142,000. Robert, 134. Kevin, 81. And Anthony, the short stack at 57. Again, these blinds are 6, 12, 12. So these guys, some of these shorter stacks are going to have to make a move here early to try to get some ammunition to run down to the end. And hand number 2. Matthew waking up with ace king suited here in the 8th seat. He's going to raise it up there to 36,000, 3x the big blind. Call by Ray A. And Anthony going to pick an inopportune moment here on the short stack to get this in there, unfortunately. King 9, but like I said, he didn't have a lot of chips. And it's going to go over to Matthew. Now you see Matthew there pulling back his chips. It is a call, but it is not enough to reopen the action. So he's going to have to just call the 9,000 of Anthony's all in. And Ray A is going to come along as well. So we're going to go 3 ways to a flop with Anthony C's tournament life on the line. Has made it all the way down to this final table. Let's see if he can stay with us on the live stream final 9. 7, deuce, 10, 2 hearts on that flop. That's going to be Matthew with the nut flush draw there. And so it looks like he's going to continue on here with a bet to try to build up a side pot. Ray A with the pocket 8s. Tough to make a call here. He does have 150,000 in chips. Not a ton of room, but with a player all in, he could just let Matthew take out the other player, and that's what he's going to decide to do. So he goes ahead and folds that. So we're going to be heads up, cards exposed all the way to the river now, showing King 9. Anthony looking for a 9 and only a 9. There's the ace. That's going to be the dagger in the heart right on the turn there, unfortunately, for Anthony C. But big congratulations to him for making it this far, beating out a field of over 100 players to get down to this final table Road to Vegas championship. So a good game to Anthony C for making it to the final 9. So hand number 2, we've already had our first dropout. Given the chip stacks and the blind levels, you're going to see quite a bit of action probably here in the beginning mathematically. Now, how they choose to play, given how big the first place prize is, you're going to be definitely picking and choosing your spots. So it's going to be depending on how people want to play here. If they want to play it aggressively, if some of these bigger stacks want to kind of push their weight around to get some of these guys to maybe bleed out. It's wait and see. I don't know much of these players here and how their play styles are. So we just have to wait and see what they choose to do. So hand number 3. And Ray going to raise up there with pocket nines and take down those blinds. If you can take down the blinds in a tournament, it's a little bit different than the cash games that we usually stream here. But if you can just take down the blinds in a tournament, what you're doing is you're buying yourself another orbit, which is very, very important, especially when the blinds are this high. For those that are just used to watching us stream the cash games, tournament does play differently. The blinds are going up every 30 minutes as it goes around the table there, and they are not an insignificant value because we're on level, I think, 17 in this tournament here. So people will have to make moves. And speaking of moves, Jonathan W here in the 7th seat, waking up with pocket queens. Definitely going to see a raise here. He has 219,000 in his stack. And let's see what kind of sizing he chooses to raise it up here to 36,000. So 3 times the big blind. I think that's going to be pretty standard. Some conservative fold there. King Jack off suit there. Kevin with the 8-3 not going to come along. So Jonathan not going to have any takers there with his pocket queens. But when you're dragging a pot in a tournament this deep, this late, it's definitely good to be doing. We've got quite a bit of people in the chat here. Yeah, quite a few people watching the live stream on Facebook and YouTube. So, who are you rooting for? Who have you tuned in to watch to try to win that $10,000 ticket to Las Vegas in the World Series of Poker main event? Like I said, lots of people watching, lots of fan favorites on here. We are on a 15-minute delay, so everything that you see going on here happened 15 minutes ago in the past. So don't bother texting your buddy and telling him what the opponent has. It doesn't work that way. The phones aren't allowed at the table anyway. Ray A here going to raise it up to 32,000 with a Jack 10 suited. Matthew waking up with Ace King. So 2 of the bigger stacks here, mixing it up right off the bat. I like the raise from Ray there with the Jack 10, putting the larger stack to work, try to pick up some of these blinds. But Matthew not going to be going anywhere with the Ace King. He does 3-bet to 77,000. And then Jonathan waking up with pocket jacks. So we have been gifted some pretty big action hands here early. So it's a difficult spot here with pocket jacks for Jonathan. You've got a raise +1 with the Jack 10 and then a 3-bet immediately thereafter. And Jonathan making the big laydown there with jacks. I do not hate it. It becomes a very awkward spot there when you're facing a raise and then a 3-bet, and especially whenever you get the ace high flop. So expect some fireworks here. Ray flopping the Jack high flush draw. Matthew flopping top. Ray checks it over for pot control over to Matthew. Let's see if Matthew wants to continue the aggression. Seeing some people there in chat. John, Robert. So he's going to bet 90,000. Now Ray here has about $500,000 left in his stack. 274 in the pot. So he's calling about a third. He's almost getting the math here to make this call, and he chooses to. So Ray here looking for a heart and only a heart. Does pick up a gut shot there with the queen on the turn, giving himself a little bit more equity, but nothing to feel super comfortable about. Matthew still in control of this hand. Let's see how he proceeds with the betting pattern here. Again, the pot is already 364,000, which is a significant pot given the chip sizes at the table. Matthew only has about a pot size bet back. He does choose to check for pot control here. Ray looking for a king or a heart, does not get there. So tough run out there for Ray, gambling a little bit there. Let's see if he maybe finds a bluff at it here. With Matthew slowing down on the turn, definitely disguises the strength of his hand. You could see Ray try to pick it up here, but chooses not to. Let's see if Matthew wants to get some value or just get to a showdown on a pretty significant pot already. He is going to go ahead and bet for value here. It looks like 101. Let's see what the computer says here. Yeah, 101,000. Ray unfortunately has to let that go, not having anything to combat with there. So Matthew picking up a very healthy pot right off the rip. And So that's going to push him up to 740,000 and taking the chip lead there over Matthew G with a little over 500,000 in chips. Ray just under a 500,000. Jonathan at two and a quarter, John B at 220, David 136, Robert 134, and Kevin is down to his last 27,000. And with the blinds of 6,000 at 12,000 with a $12,000 ante, Kevin is going to be looking for something to get it in and double it up with. Kevin not waking up with anything there on the button. So now the battle of the blinds with Jonathan. He's going to limp that in there and call Matthew. Uh, Looks like he's going to raise it up there and punish Jonathan for the limp. And Jonathan, of course, is going to have to let that one go. So, like I said, Jonathan just trying to get to a cheap flop and try to outplay Matthew on the flop, and does not work. Matthew with the three deuce suited, and a very good raise there to test the commitment of him there on that limped small blind. A lot of people rooting on John. So it looks like so far the chat favorites between Facebook and YouTube. A couple Roberts, a couple Johns, a couple Matthews. David S. going to raise it up here with King Jack offsuit to 50,000. Pretty substantial raise over 3x there, so it's going to get through pretty easily. But again, that's the story of tournament poker: is to pick up those blinds, pick up those free orbits, and not bleed away as slowly with the blinds as big as they are. Hand number 8 here. John B raising up to 50,000 with the ace jack. Again, a pretty thick raise for these levels. Sometimes players choose to do 3x the blind. Here we're looking at almost 4. Of course, the ante is in there as well. Ace 10 versus ace jack. 3 clubs on that flop. John B, the only one with the club in the hand. Ray A checking back to see if that spade might have been a club, but unfortunately it was not. So typically on these monotone boards like this, the spoils usually goes to the aggressors, and that's exactly what Ray's going to do here. Bet 125,000 into John. Now, the only way John can continue here is if he feels like his jack is going to be best. If another club peels off. And he's only got 170K, so basically Ray here is putting him to a test for all of his chips. And John's just not going to be able to do it there. So good aggression there by Ray, taking the position and using it to his advantage to put John to the test there. So if you are just tuning in, this is a Poker House Fort Worth's Road to Vegas Championship. The winner of this final table will be receiving a $10,000 ticket into the most prestigious tournament in the world, the World Series of Poker main event. And that thing starts like, 2 weeks? So these guys don't have a whole lot of time to get over to Vegas, but We're going to be giving them a ticket and $1,000 in travel expenses to help get them there. And whenever you have a bucket list item opportunity to play in a $10,000 tournament, especially when it's the most prestigious one in the world, you definitely take it. So we're going to send one of these guys to Vegas. Matthew waking up with queens here, raising it up to 50,000. Robert R. Ace Jack off suit, one of the shorter stacks at the table, decides not to make his stand there. Do not blame him. That's a tough hand to call with. Matthew going to pick up some blinds there with the pocket queens, and he shows everybody. Now, that's interesting because in tournament poker, you're limited to just what you have. So you want to be able to tell a story, and Matthew's saying that, hey, I raised it up. Here's my hand. Take that information. I want you to know that I am not messing around. And maybe you can use that information to get them to fold later if he shows monsters like that. The aggression frequency there on your screen, Matthew M and Matthew G, both 36, 27% leading there. That's just basically how much they lead out into the field, which is also very important in tournament poker. But with these blinds at 6, 12, and 12, not a lot in play. And Kevin G has finally picked a spot to get his short stack in play, all in for 27,000. And see if anybody else wakes up with anything here. It's not much more to the blinds here, so this is going to be the true test to get through the blinds of seats 2 and 3. David S. only 15,000 to call, but he's only got 142,000, so it's 10% of his chips to call, and it's going to work for Kevin. He's going to pick up the blinds there to be able to survive another orbit. So that's pretty huge there for Kevin, not getting any contestants and picking up the blinds there, so he can essentially get through another orbit there without losing where he was. But he's still definitely in a situation where it's pretty much all in or fold for him. Again, these guys got into this tournament by playing in a point series over the last few months here at Poker House Fort Worth. Everyone started with a different chip stack size depending on how much they earned here at Poker House Fort Worth. It was a fantastic format that a lot of people enjoyed, being able to pick up chips and basically get as many chips as they could to make it into this tournament with the larger chip stack. But I said at the top of the stream, I'll look up the stats again. We had a little over 100 entries into this tournament yesterday, and just 2 out of the top 10 chip leaders made it to the final table. So some great chip movements in the field. Ray A is going to raise this up to ace 7 offsuit. David S calls with a very attractive jack 10 suited. Queen 4 3 on this flop. So yeah, David's going to play the aggression here, and I like it. I absolutely like it. One of the shorter stacks at the table, built him up a pot pre-flop and jammed it in with the Jack 10 suited. Ray A with only the Ace 7 is going to have a hard time calling this here. He does have just under $500,000 in chips, but these chips are valuable with the blinds as high as they are. So it's going to be tough for Ray to call here, and he does not. So a great bet there by David to lead out and take that down. So big come up there for David S, picking up a little over 80,000 in that pot, moving him up to 4th in chips. Kevin G is still our short stack. Robert R with less than 10 bigs. John B sitting at 146,000. Chip leader still at Matthew M, 710,000. So it's still definitely anyone's game. There's one double up, and you are pretty much close to the chip leader. So definitely no one running away with this one so far. They all came to the final table. No one with any massive chip advantage, but like I said, definitely no shortage of action in these first 10 hands. Some big hands played. Lego on YouTube saying they'll fare great in the main event, raising 4x all the time. There's all types of play styles. You never know, but that's what they're playing for. That's exactly what they're playing for. Is that main event ticket to the World Series of Poker? Matthew, you're going to raise it up with pseudo connectors here to looks like 27,000. And the cutoff there, maybe pick up some blinds. Kevin G there, very pretty jack nine, but a good lay down there by him, choosing a better spot to get his stack in. He's still in the all in or fold category of the tournament right now. So the chip leader there putting some of those chips to work. And speaking of which, I mentioned earlier that the player that only had 4,000 in chips to get to into this tournament to get it started, and had it all in one of the first couple hands he played, is Matthew G, and he is the current chip leader. So right now he has gone from rags to riches in this tournament. We'll see if he can hang on to that chip lead. But he started out yesterday with only 4,000 in chips, unable to build up much of a chip stack to get into to the qualifier. But he was in the qualifier, and that is what is important in these tournaments. Is just you don't have to have the biggest chips going into the dance, but just getting to the dance is important. So Robert R here, picking up pocket tens, all in for 104,000. I definitely like the fact that he does have quite a bit of chips to be able to have some fold equity there. 100,000 is a lot to any of the players there left. So 100,000, still having 100,000 in chips and just go ahead and ripping it in there definitely will get you a lot more folds because you have enough chips to cause a lot of damage. So he picks up some valuable blinds there and gets a free orbit out of the deal. Hand number 14 here at this final table. Minnesota Mike there in the box for Poker House Fort Worth, a live stream regular dealer. And Matthew going to get the walk there. Nobody able to pick up anything to combat that. And with over 500,000 in chips, that's going to be a tough big blind to steal. As we are waiting for the graphics to catch up here. Graphics catch up to here. We saw a button raise by Jonathan W. Looks like he made it 32,000. And let the graphics play catch up here. And if not, we could just play a mystery hand. What do you think they have? But he was called by Matthew G. So Jonathan W., one of the shorter stacks here at the table, betting it into Matthew here with a little over 500,000 in chips. We haven't seen the flop yet, even though it says ace king trade there on the board. We don't know as so we had two callers there. So that's going to be a pretty good chunk of chips there for Jonathan W. The aggression pre-flop and the c-bet there on that flop. Apologies for not getting the cards read there, but in live poker, sometimes you miss a few of the hands. The little circles you see there on the table are the RFID readers that tell the computer what the players have. And sometimes they don't get scanned just quite right, but we get 90% of them so you don't miss too much of the action. Hand number 16, Matthew on the button, picking up ace 7 of clubs. Going to try to take advantage of the blinds here, hoping they do not wake up with much here. Going to be raising this up, and looks like a pretty chunky raise there. Blinds of 6 and 12, raising it up to 45,000. Now Ray waking up with the ace tray of diamonds here. These suited ace wheel cards. The kids these days are playing these like ace king, but it's easier to bet with them than it is to call. So he goes ahead and lays it down. Robert R. not waking up with anything there. So Matthew going to pick up some of the blinds there, bringing him up to 561,000 into chips. So still 8 players remaining of this final 9 playing down to this Road to Vegas Championship Tournament. $10,000 world premiere event, the WSOP main event, starting here pretty soon. I believe the day ones start around July 2nd, 3rd, or 4th. So they're going to be jumping right out of here onto a plane in a couple weeks and playing in the World Series of Poker main event, $10,000 seat. They have to get there first, and Pocket Kings does help here whenever you get them in this stage of the tournament. David S. going to raise it up with those Pocket Kings to 60,000, so a big raise there. Willing to just take down the blinds, and it looks like that may be what happens here. If no one else wakes up with anything, they want to shove the rest of their stack into. Robert with Jack 10 off suit, not be able to do it, and Matthew not waking up with anything. So David S. picking up the Pocket Kings and picking up the blinds there, and that puts him a little over $250,000 in chips and be able to survive another orbit by picking up the blinds there. So nothing wrong with that when you're dragging a pot here at this level of the tournament. Anything does help. Now, for those that saw me streaming before this live stream, I was talking a little bit about that $20,000 free roll that we announced yesterday. The points system is going to work very similar to the way we did this Road to Vegas event, for those familiar. Participation in tournaments, placement in tournaments, the free rolls, that sort of thing. But we're also going to be able to earn chips by playing in our cash games. You're going to get 500 chips towards that chip stack for every hour that you play in our cash games. And then we have the spinning wheel. We have a lot of ways to earn chips for these monthly qualifiers. Once a month, there's going to be a qualifier to try to get into that $20,000 free roll. So looking forward to that. We'll have more details on that. Jonathan W. here going to raise. He's just going to limp in with the King 10 off suit there and the low jack position. Matthew there in the small blind. Only 6,000 more for him with the chip lead of over 700K. Not much more to him with some pretty suited connectors. David S. is going to be able to check his options. So we're going to go 3 ways to a limped pot here. Jack, Ace, Jack definitely favors, even though Jonathan was a limper, he was not in the blind, so it definitely favors his range of possibly representing an ace. Matthew going to check, David going to check over to Jonathan, but he chooses to check. So right now it's anybody's pot. Pair of 9s now for Matthew is best, and him being the chip lead, now he decides not to take the lead out there. So they're just going to try to get to a cheap showdown. Now we have aces and jacks. So Jonathan is best with the king. So what a river for Jonathan there. Having the king high, and he's actually going to bet this out. I guess try to get some value here with what is obviously the best hand. Does not get a caller there, so he's going to pick up some blinds there himself. So it works out for him, pushing almost 300K in chips, so getting a little more comfortable chip position with the blinds at 6,000, 12,000, 12,000. These levels are 30 minutes long here on this day 2. So these guys definitely do have some time to play and make some laydowns without the blinds getting too high too quickly. So they're definitely going to be able to play for this $10,000 seat. Kevin G picking up a pocket pair and going to go ahead and put his last 27,000 in there. See if he can pick up some blinds here. But let's see if the blinds here wake up with anything to defend with. It's only 27,000 to the chip leader with pocket trays, so he's going to have to probably call this off. And he's cutting out the chips there, and it does. So Kevin G going to be in pretty good position here. Let's listen in and see how it goes.
One hand, I don't want to see. Fours. I got pip. Give me ace king there for him.
Still want to make that t-shirt that says Pips Matter.
7 8.
7, 10, 10, and 9. So any 7 or 9, and they chop this pot. The fours still hold. So Kevin is going to get the much needed double up there, courtesy of the chip leader. So Kevin's staying alive, hanging in there. Now up to 84,000 in chips. Survived 2 all ins so far, coming into this final table as the short stack. All ins work every time except once, as poker players say. Robert with 104,000 in chips, pausing to contemplate ace 7 suited, and does go ahead and ship that in there again, choosing to just make it all of it. And instead, there's not much sizing that works when you have that kind of awkward chip stack. Betting that much does hurt anyone at the table. 100,000 is a lot of chips, and he can pick up some orbits there by picking up those blinds. So Robert there, 2 for 2 on his all ins. Hand number 21. We've only lost one player of these final 9 in this Road to Vegas championship tournament. We had 104 players start yesterday, played down to the final 9 to restart today for the live stream. Well, these gentlemen are playing for a $10,000 main event seat in just a couple weeks. So we have quite a few people tuned in. We do appreciate you tuning into the Poker House Fort Worth live stream to check this out. Jonathan W., you're going to get the walk there. Always good to get a walk in the big blind in this stage of a tournament. So viewers tuned in on Facebook and YouTube, where we do all of our streaming. Now, this coming Wednesday, we usually stream DJ's game, but we're going to switch it up and do a little something different with the Summer Jam that's starting on Tuesday. The Summer Jam starts this Tuesday, day after tomorrow at 6 p.m. is Flight A. It's a $65 buy-in tournament on a $50,000 guarantee. Yes, you heard that right. $50,000 guarantee tournament on a $65 buy-in. Poker House Fort Worth and Poker House Peaks will both be having flights simultaneously. So if you're listening in from the Dallas area, we're going to be doing it over there on your side of the Metroplex as well. 8 flights, both clubs. $65 entry for a $50,000 guaranteed prize pool. Jonathan chooses to call here in the small blind. Now, last time I did this, Matthew raised it up and Jonathan immediately folded, but this time Matthew does not put him to the test. So Jonathan limping in under the small blind, and we're going to be going to a flop heads up of 9-4-6. Jonathan flopping middle pair, Matthew king of five, not having anything to go with that board. And Matthew can go ahead and surrender that one there. So Jonathan going to pick up the big blind there. So payback for what didn't work last time against Matthew. So he'll pick up that big blind back and survive another orbit here worth of blinds. But as I was saying, we typically stream DJ's game on Wednesdays here at Poker House Fort Worth, but we're going to be streaming Flight B. Flight B of the $65 buy-in, $50,000 guaranteed tournament. It starts at 6 p.m. So if you come and play in that flight on Wednesday, your table may be featured on the live stream. We're going to pick one of the tables to be the feature table. So if you can't make it into Poker House Fort Worth or Poker House Peaks to play in this fantastic value tournament, you can tune in and root on some of your friends playing in that flight, or check out to see how some of the other players play. Maybe you run into them on day two and say, you know what, I've already watched you play, sir or ma'am, and I know how you play because I tuned in to the Poker House Fort Worth live stream. John B thinking long about the ace-9, decides against it. Jonathan W not picking up anything here on the button. Matthew G suited connectors in the small blind. I like a raise here, and it looks like he is going for some raising chips, making it an even 50 to go here to Ray. Ace-5 offsuit. Would love to see a flop with it, but depends on how much he wants to see here. You know, you always feel like when you're in the big blind, when it's folded all the way around to the small blind and they raise it up, it always feels like grand larceny. So you tempted to defend wider. And he does defend. So possibly what I was saying might have affected him there. Whenever the small blind raises you like that, you feel like you need to call him lighter. And he does not get rewarded for his defense. Matthew is going to flop the joint here and keep the pedal to the metal. And Ray caught just enough of this to possibly get himself in trouble here. Matthew flopping the straight 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and Ray with ace-5 offsuit does pick up bottom pair of fives. And if he feels like Matthew was making a move on him pre-flop and defended with the ace-5, he still might feel that Matthew is still attempting to make this move. And he may choose to defend this bottom pair here, thinking it may be best. Oh, luckily gets away from it there. Good decision there by him to go ahead and lay that down. Matthew was playing slightly light and then flopped a monster and pretty much had him drawing dead at that point. So good lay down there by Ray, saving himself some more chips in that hand. We are at 8,000, 16,000, 16,000. So the blinds have gone up and they are damaging. That's a lot of chips, 40,000 in chips hitting you per orbit as that button comes around. And that is well more than 10% of some of these stacks. David S. finally waking up with a hand here. Ace Jack offsuit raises it up to 55. And it does pick up those blinds, winning that 40,000 that I was just talking about, building his stack up to 268. So, like I said, raising it up and picking up the blinds. While you don't see that much in the cash games are just usually 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5, 6 callers, being at Texas Poker. In tournaments, people have to play a little more conservatively. They have to play a little more strategically. And so, more often than not, especially at this stage of the tournament when they're playing for such a fantastically great large prize, you're going to see a lot more laying down of the blinds so they can be up for grabs. As the tournament moves on, you can kind of see who is playing it slow, who's being a little more aggressive, and so you might see an opportunity to pick up some blinds. David here going to pick up Ace Jack again. Gonna Riz looks like he's just going to limp in this time, so he's trying to see a flop with his Ace Jack here. No takers so far. Definitely going to not be able to get rid of these small and big blind. Now, Robert R, 8,000 dim. He does have a little over 100,000. Don't mind laying that down. Almost 10% of the chips come in there. But Matthew's going to check his options. So we're going to be able to see a flop between these two players. David S. limping in with a pretty significantly sneaky, decent hand here. Ace Jack against the Queen 9 on a 4 deuce deuce flop. So let's see if David S. continues the aggression or Matthew maybe thinking about taking the lead here. He was in the big blind. The big blind can't wake up with any of those cards. So that bet right there, fantastically done by Matthew, is definitely going to make David S. think, even though he does call, it's definitely going to be sending some red flags. When you don't raise the big blind, they could have anything. So any 4, any deuce are in play there for Matthew. Matthew does slow down though, so check there. So now it's going to be wide open to bet here. Now the king on the river provides an interesting dynamic. Matthew's going to stab at this here, but David still might think that his ace high is best. So you're probably going to see a call at a minimum here by David. He is reaching for some chips. Yeah, he does go ahead and make that call with the ace. So a great call there by David. Matthew making a great bet on that flop to try to take that down. I love the bet. And with David sticking with that ace jack through that flop bet does pay off with the 2 pair on the board. His ace has enough showdown value to call that bet by Matthew. So well played poker hand. David is sticking around and taking that pot down. We appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in to Poker House Live, streaming from Poker House Fort Worth in Burleson, Texas. Quite a few people tuned in watching this Road to Vegas Championship to see who gets the ticket to Vegas, the $10,000 main event seat. Matthew raises up to 36,000 here with ace queen in the small blind. David S. in the big blind with ace 10. So battle of the blinds here with 2 decent holdings on a 9-9-4 flop. So who's going to continue to take the lead on this hand? It does go check. A deuce on the turn does not change anything for anyone. It's going to go check again. These guys are going to try to get to a decent showdown here. Ace queen for Matthew. It's going to be good enough to take this pot down. So Matthew gets some of those chips back from David that he lost last hand. So they are even Steven for the last 2 hands there. Matthew M in seat 2, still the chip leader with 653,000. Matthew G in seat 8, just under 600,000. Ray 350,000. Jonathan W 335. David S 300. And then bringing up the smaller side of the field, John B with 108, Robert with 104, and Kevin G still staying alive, 2 for 2 on his all-ins with 44,000 in chips. And 44,000's, that's almost 3x the big blind. So he's got a little bit of fold equity. So unfortunately, he's not going to be able to do it with ace 8 deuce off suit. So we're going to have to wait for a better one, Matthew G. It was good timing because he's going to wake up with pocket aces here. Uh, that always makes it tough. A 600K chip stack with the pocket aces. See if we have any takers. John B with the ace jack suited, and he's going to put it in here in terrible shape, unfortunately. So John B finally waking up with a hand and at the wrong time. So Jonathan B looking for a lot of spades here or a lot of jacks. He does pick up the spade draw, so John B does have life here. Looking for a spade. Still nothing. Spade and only a spade saves John. Does not happen here. So Matthew G going to take down John B in this Road to Vegas tournament. But with that flop and that holdings against pocket aces, I think he'll take that spot when he's up against pocket aces any day of the week with a spade to get a full double up there. So we have lost one more player, so we are down to 7 here at Poker House Fort Worth. There are quite a few of you watching and or listening. And we do have cash games going on right now, so there's plenty of time to come and watch these guys play live. As everyone knows that has been here to Poker House Fort Worth, there's plenty of room to sit and watch the live stream table. So if you feel like playing some poker, a little bit of cash games here on this Sunday afternoon, and watch us play down to a winner for the $10,000 seat. We've got cash games up and going right now. David S. on the button, picking up king and queen offsuit. Going to be just calling it there. And Kevin G. checking his options. So we're going to go heads up here on a king 10 deuce flop, 2 diamonds. David flopping at top pair. Kevin, unfortunately, bottom pair, does not waste any time letting that one go. So Kevin going to need to pick a spot here. Unfortunately, got his big blind taken there by David S. Doesn't have much more chips. He's going to be the small blind here for 10 or 8,000, and I believe he's only going to have 20 or so thousand left behind after that. But he is 2 for 2 in his all-ins. They work every time but the last time. But definitely Kevin G looking for this hand to pick up a decent one to put the rest of those chips in and get back on the path to building up that chip stack. Matthew G, your chip leader, 7-6 offsuit. Lets that one go. Ray A picking up the king and jack. Hasn't had much to fight with here the last few hands, so you may see him raise it up here, and he does to 60,000. Robert R, king at 10 offsuit. Now, knowing that the small blind in it's going to be, no, he's not going to put it in there, so good on him to live to fight another day here. Again, he's 2 for 2 in all ins. Just wasn't feeling it on that one, and since he's inheriting the button, he's going to be able to look at quite a few hands to get the rest of that stack in. So not a bad play if you can maybe see a few more hands without putting any money in the pot and picking a better spot to get it in there with. We are moving along pretty quickly here. Hand at number 30. As players are being very meticulous on their hand selections, as they should be when you're playing for a $10,000 seat into the World Series of Poker main event. And Robert R is going to put his stack to work here with the ace-queen offsuit. Still hovering around that 1,000 mark. Kevin's going to come along with the last of his stack, 28,000, with the king-10 offsuit. Jonathan getting out of the way in the small blind. And I think Matt is going to looks like he let the big blind go here. So We're going to see an all in here with Kevin. Robert with about a fifth of his chips at risk since Kevin G was pretty short. So ace queen versus king 10 to a flop. Kevin G at risk, looking for a king or a 10. Picks up a gut shot straight, 9, 6, 7 on the board. Deuce, no help to either player. Kevin G looking for a king, 10, or 8. And does not get it. Unfortunately, we are going to say goodbye to Kevin, a fantastic character here at Poker House Fort Worth. Had a lot of fun with him yesterday during the tournament. Great fun to have at the table. Great, seems like a great guy to play poker with. Lots of fun at the table every time there for Kevin. And so then there were six left playing for this $10,000 ticket to the World Series of Poker. Second, third, and fourth place have a little bit of a consolation prize. We have $1,000 for second place, so they're not going home empty-handed for getting all the way to the ticket bubble, as it were. So, second place will be picking up 1,000 in cold hard cash. Third place, 500, and fourth place, 250. So, a couple more places here, and these guys be getting a little bit of cash for their efforts. Again, these guys have been playing for several months, building up their chip stacks to play in the tournament yesterday, which was only a small access fee to be in. So any kind of money getting out of this is net positive. Jonathan W. raising it up. No, he's just going to limp in on his button there. Going to play his position with Queen 8 offsuit. Matthew G. waking up with a real hand here. Which I believe is still your chip leader at almost 700K. So King 10 of Hearts, good enough to raise it there and make Jonathan test there. Now this is going to be the second time that he's taken Jonathan W's limp and raised it there and taken that money. So let's see if that dynamic continues. David is going to raise it up here and the hijack with a king queen suited. Robert, who has doubled up his stack, he goes ahead and shows the king queen to let everybody know that he wasn't bluffing. Again, sometimes showing your cards here helps tell a story for later. Show a few good hands, and people may believe that you still have it later when you make those raises. Hand number 33. We've been playing for just over an hour here. Again, these are 30-minute levels, so plenty of time for these players to play the cards they want to play, put themselves in the best position possible to run this up without the blinds really beating them up too bad. They are big blinds, but they don't go up too quickly with 30-minute levels. Ray on the button going to play that position with Jack 10 offsuit. Robert R. small blind with King 8 letting it go. And Matthew waking up with pocket rockets. Pair of aces here for the big blind. So that's going to be tough for Ray to put him on that. We'll see how heavily Matthew here, look, because Matthew is going to three bet him here. So we will see just how much to see if Ray can lay down this Jack 10 offsuit. And he three bet him to 155. So a massive, massive re raise there. Uh, Definitely difficult for Ray to call that off. He only has 285 behind, so it'd be for all of his stack or just the loss of the 55 there. Yeah, and he is going to let that go. Matthew, let's see if he shows the aces. No, he doesn't. No, he does not. So uh, that one's going to sting for Ray, trying to play the button position there with a very playable hand. Matthew G, your chip leader with pocket fives, goes ahead and lets that one go, folded around to the button where Robert has queen seven suited. Battle of the blinds now. And it is going to be a walk there for David, who has definitely snuck up the ladder there on the chip stack, picking up a few hands quietly, building himself up to almost 400K in chips. We have six people left of this final table of nine. If you are just tuning in, there are quite a few people on the YouTube and Facebook live streams. Let us know in the chat who you are rooting on to go to Vegas. Of the six guys remaining, battling a field of just over 100 players yesterday to make it to this final nine. Not a lot to go off of here on hand 35 as it is folded around to the blinds. David S. here completes the small blind with 16,000 in the big, and Jonathan W. looking down at King Queen offsuit decided to tax him a little bit more and raising it up to 71,000. So 55,000 to play here for David S. And he does have an ace, but it does not have a fantastic kicker here. But we'll see if he comes along, but chooses not to. So losing it just the limp along there. So Jonathan picks up a much needed pot, building his stack up to looks like just over 150K. Again, one of these six guys will be getting that $10,000 seat to the most prestigious tournament in the World Series of Poker main event. It's going to be happening in just a couple weeks. So this will definitely be a bucket list item for many of these guys to be able to go to Las Vegas and play in that tournament for $10,000 that they have won courtesy of Poker House Fort Worth in the Road to Vegas Championship Series that they have been played in the last few months. And we're essentially starting the point series all over again starting tomorrow, but this time it's going to be qualifying for a $20,000 free roll, which is a big deal too. $20,000 free roll that you can qualify for with earning these points. Jonathan going to pick up some more blinds there, putting him close to 200,000 with the King Queen offsuit raise up there and the small blind. Yeah, starting tomorrow, you're going to be able to earn points in our free roll tournaments, noon and 6 p.m., just like these guys did for the Road to Vegas. And if you did play in the Road to Vegas event, you know how the point system works. And this is going to be pretty similar. You're going to be able to build your chip stack for the qualifier based on your participation, your placement, But this time you'll be able to build up your chip stack with your cash game access play. For every hour that you play in the cash games here at Poker House Fort Worth, you can earn some chips into the monthly qualifier. And you get in the top 15% of that monthly qualifier, qualifying you into the $20,000 zero entry tournament. Great value there. David S. raised it up to 60,000 with his ace jack offsuit, picking up the blinds there.
Break time, race off the thousands.
And the players are going to be taking a break.
Race off the thousands.
And so while these players take a quick break in the tournament here, we can talk a little bit about what we have coming up this week. Like I said, I just mentioned the $28,000 zero entry tournament point series. But more immediately than that is this Tuesday, we have the $50,000 guarantee tournament for only a $65 buy-in. That's right, only a $65 buy-in for a $50,000 guaranteed tournament. This tournament is going to be held simultaneously at Poker House Fort Worth and Poker House Peaks. So if you are watching and or listening from the other side of the Metroplex there in Dallas, close by near you, you can play in this tournament as well. Both clubs will be running these flights simultaneously. 12% will be cashing, and 8% from each flat will be bagging and tagging to take to Poker House Peaks for day 2 a week from today, Sunday, June 2nd. July 2nd. No, day 2, June 30th. Sorry, that's not quite into July yet. We still have a little bit of June left. So 8 flights, 2 clubs, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, 6 p.m. this week at either location. And then Friday, 2 flights, 12 p.m. That's 12 noon and 6 p.m. Saturday, same thing, noon and 6 p.m. And then late Saturday night, you can try to get that second or third bag. Hopefully you've bagged this at some point this week. You can take 2 bags forward. So late Saturday night, we'll have that turbo flight at 10 p.m. Again, those turbo flight might be just what you're looking for to get that triple bag bonus. That's a $500 cash bonus for that triple bag. What that means, if you're not familiar, you can take 2 bags forward out of the 8 flights. So you get in the top 8%, bag and tag your chips, and then buy into another flight and do it all over again. You can combine those 2 bags and move forward to day 2 on June 30th. But if you get a triple bag bonus during 3 out of 8 of those flights, you get to take the top 2 bags with you to day 2 and get a $500 bonus pay for that cold third bag. So that's going to be a fantastic, fantastic tournament starting next Tuesday at 6 p.m. in both locations, Poker House Fort Worth and Poker House Peaks. 8 flights, 2 clubs, $50,000 for only $65. You just can't beat that. Let's pull up what's going on tonight. It's 1:30 here at Poker House Fort Worth. We have our $1,500 guaranteed Chipapalooza tournament every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. We will be having that tonight. So here in about 5 hours, we're playing cash right now at Poker House Fort Worth, but we'll be having the $1,500 free roll tonight at 6:30 p.m. Again, you get your 5K starting stack for free, a $10 instant bonus for 5K more chips, and then you can do the $25 rebuy at any time with 10K or less in chips. That is a $1,500 free roll, and starting here in just 5 hours here at Poker House Fort Worth. So, like I said, hope to see all of you here this afternoon, maybe to root on the eventual winner here of the remaining 6 for the $10,000 main event seat, and come play in the 6:30 p.m. $1,500 free roll tonight. Now, tomorrow's schedule will have the noon free roll, the $500 guaranteed noon free roll that we have 7 days a week. But this one will be going on all week long. But the evening Chipapalooza tournaments that are usually on a Sunday, Monday, Thursday, Saturday, those are going to be postponed for next week for the $65 entry summer jam. So I definitely hope everyone's going to be playing in that one. But the noon free rolls will be going on tomorrow, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then, of course, Friday and Saturday we'll be having the noon flights of the summer jam. So there's definitely some ways to earn some points this week in the free rolls for the $20,000 points series that we just announced. That'll be starting up on Monday. And the free rolls will only be interrupted by this fantastic tournament. But I think if you play in the free rolls and you enjoy the free rolls, the $65 buy-in tournament is going to be massively, massively worth it for this $50,000 guaranteed tournament. So don't miss those flights. You want to get 2 bags to move forward at least, and then get that triple bag bonus, which could free roll the whole tournament for you there. And get as many chips as you can together to come back to day 2 at Poker House Peaks in Dallas on June 30th at 1 p.m. The tournament players, there are, like I said, 6 remaining, and they are on a short break. So I will take a quick break myself, and we will be back here definitely. It looks to be about 8 minutes. So I'll be taking a quick break and back in 8 minutes, and we're going to play 6-handed to see if we can get down at 2-1 for the $10,000 ticket into the world's most premier poker tournament, the World Series of Poker main event. That's going to be coming up in a couple weeks for these guys. Whoever wins needs to go ahead and book that plane ASAP, because they'll be playing in the World Series of Poker main event, courtesy of Poker House of Fort Worth and this Road to Vegas Championship. Again, thanks for tuning in, and hang in there. Don't go anywhere. It's going to be a short break, and we'll be back to watch this final 6 battle it out. So we'll be back in just a few moments. And the players are coming back from a break. I had a quick little candy bar myself. My name is Reese with Poker House Fort Worth, here with you live for this final six on this Road to Vegas championship, where we will be giving away a $10,000 main event ticket to the World Series of Poker main event. To the winner of this tournament started yesterday, a little over 100 entries into this tournament, and we had 9 people come back today and play poker for you guys here. Lots of people in the chat on both YouTube and Facebook. Quite a few people in the chat. Let us know who you're rooting on here. We have David S., Matthew M., Matthew G., Jonathan, Robert, and Ray still battling it out for that $10,000 ticket. Again, coming back from a quick break. And I didn't want to miss any of it. I didn't want any of you to miss any of it. So we are here waiting for the players to come back to the table. Teach says, I can't have favorites. All of them friends. Everybody's a friend except at the poker table. But I guess if you're not sitting there, you can root on all 6 of that are left. Lots of good play here at this final table. We've seen some good laydowns, some good aggression from some of the poker players. So I think we will have a good representation in Las Vegas, no matter who takes this down. And as we hear the clock ticking down, again, I'm in 15 minutes on delay here on stream. And the blinds have gone up. They are a brutal 10,000, 20,000 with a $20,000 ante. So we're definitely going to see some chips fly here as players try to outpace these blinds coming around very quickly, 6-handed. David coming back to a great hand from Brink, the pocket jacks. Let's see how he decides to play this here. He's going to raise it up to 75,000. Matthew with the 8-7 suited on the button, not able to defend on that. Ray, unfortunately, not picking up much to battle with here. Robert picks up the ace-king, so we're going to come right back to break to right back from break to some action. He's going to go ahead and ship this in, and obviously going to have to be called by David S. here. So right off the rip, we're going to have a coin flip. Robert, who has not had to sweat anything just yet, uncalled on his all-ins, is called here to a flop of 2-5-4, picking up some additional outs there for Robert. A 3 to make a straight, looking for an ace, king, or 3. No help there. We have a 6. No 6 to a chop. So ace, king, or 3 does not happen there. So Robert had a great hand, put it in a great spot. Unfortunately, David S. waking up with a premium there, pocket pair jacks. So we say goodbye to Mr. Robert, who played a fantastic tournament yesterday and navigated his chip stack to get down to the final 6 here. So good on Mr. Robert there for his performance in this Road to Vegas championship. And David picking up some much needed chips there. So now there were 5 left into this tournament. Gilbert in the chat saying money's on the Steeler fan. It's a good looking Steeler logo there on Ray in seat number 9. Jonathan W. looking down quite a long time at ace-4 offsuit, looking to see if this might be a position where he can pick up some of these blinds. Shout out to Hayden there in the chat. Hayden, one half of the Team Fortini. If you've seen some of our social media posts lately, Team Fortini there, Hayden and Kim joining us over there at Poker House Peaks, where we will be visiting them for the day 2 of the 50K guarantee. Ray J on the button picking up ace jack offsuit. Unfortunately, David S is just on fire with his pocket queens. Immediately makes the call. So back to back, all in hands here, all of them good holdings. Ray A looking for an ace here to best David's queens. Picks up a jack on the flop, so picks up some additional outs, any jack or any ace to stay alive in this Road to Vegas championship. 3, no help to Ray. Looking for an ace or a jack. Does not get it. So back to back huge wins there by David S., who went on break and came back to the cards waiting on him. So big congratulations to Ray there, who made a couple good folds and played really well with the chip stacks in the card. Chip stacking the cards that he was given, played the best that he probably could have there. Picked up a premium hand on the button and just ran into it there with David. Unfortunately for Ray, has been eliminated in 5th, and so then there were 4. Now these final 4 are all getting a little bit of cash payment. Obviously the first place player is going to be playing in the main event in Las Vegas, but we're going to have $1,000 cash for who you ever get second, $500 for third, and $250 for fourth. We're going to let the graphics reset here. So David S., Matthew G., Jonathan W., and Matthew M. are your final 4 here, vying for that first place $10,000 ticket. Jonathan W. picking up King Jack suited. So the action continues here on hand at number 40. He's going to be raising this one up to, it looks like, 60,000. Matthew letting go the pocket fives. That's twice he's laid down small pocket pairs. Good control there of his chip stack. Matthew letting go the queen 7 suited. David finally picking up hands that the rest of us get. Queen 3, but he's going to defend because he's got some newfound chips here. So Queen 3 of clubs going up against Jonathan's King Jack of diamonds with a 6-7 ace on the board, 1 club. Jonathan's still in the lead with his King High, going to keep up the aggression pre-flop. Dave's going to let this one go, and Jonathan can pick up some much-needed chips here to build him up to a little over 400K in chips. And again, before the action, it went a little crazy, talking a little about Hayden and Kim Fortini. Hayden in the chat, which is, we all know Kim's the better half of the Team Fortini, but we'll take Hayden. How are you, Hayden, this afternoon? And Team Fortini at Poker House Peaks. Looking forward to see all the things that they are bringing in to a Poker House Peaks, all the fun stuff they have lined up. They'll be announcing a lot of that more in the upcoming days and weeks. Pretty excited to have Team Fortini on board with Poker House Peaks. Hayden and Texas Kim. I did some commentating with her on the stream last week, I believe. Both very accomplished, fantastic poker players. Lots of fun to hang out with. Super excited to see what they're going to do with Poker House Peaks. David going to limp into the small blind, completing it with ace-10 offsuit and 7-4 with Jonathan in the big blind. Checks his option to see a King Jack 3 board. No help to either player. David's ace-10 still in the lead. Queen on the turn does bink the gut shot Broadway. So David has this hand all locked up, bets out, but unfortunately, unless Jonathan is feeling crafty here, doesn't have anything to be able to combat this one with. So he does, in fact, lay that one down. And so David is able to pick up some more chips there, bringing his chip total to a little over $750,000. These guys all got here by building up a chip stack, playing in a qualifier yesterday. Everyone started with a chip stack based on their participation and performance in our free roll tournaments. That is going to continue again starting tomorrow, but instead of a Las Vegas main event tournament, we're going to be playing for a $20,000 free roll tournament. That's right, a $20,000 free roll tournament. So start building your chip stack today to get into a qualifier and get in the top 15% of any one of our monthly qualifiers to be into that $20,000 free roll tournament. And we see it again there. Jonathan tries to get to a cheap flop, and Matthew raises it up saying no. So Jonathan there, it's a couple times now that he has limped in under the small, and Matthew makes him pay the price with an immediate raise. Bryce in the chat asking when is the $20,000 free roll. It's going to be in October. You need 3 months before then, and we're going to have one qualifier at the end of every month to get into that into that free roll. So start building your chips for the qualifiers. Get in the top 15% of the qualifier, and you will be in the $20,000 free roll tournament. It's going to be a fantastic event. Cannot wait for that one. Jonathan going to call with ace 8 suited here. We're going to go 3 ways to a flop. Haven't seen that in a little while, if on the last hour at least. 8-7 queen. Jonathan going to flop best with the middle pair. Matthew both having just king high at the moment. A deuce on the turn does not change anything at the moment. And a river 6 still not changing. The pair of 8s are still best for Jonathan, and it looks like they are going to be able to go to a showdown here, and Jonathan going to pick up some decent chips there for the blind. 60,000 being shipped his way with these blinds at 10 and 28,000 with a $20,000 ante. Every pot matters for sure. Bryce, it's going to be. Take a look at it here. I don't want to tell you wrong. It's I believe it's the 12th. October 12th is going to be that $20,000 free roll. Let me see here. Yeah, the actual free roll tournament itself is going to be October 12th and 13th. The qualifying dates for this tournament is August 3rd, September 7th, and October 5th. Basically, the first Saturday of the next 3 months, where you'll take all of your chips you've accrued for the previous month. So you will spend all of July and starting tomorrow through all of July building up chips for the August 3rd qualifier. And if you get in the top 15% in any one of those qualifiers, you get the $20,000 free roll tournament entry. Matthew here is going to raise it up with ace king offsuit called by king queen. So going to need to play some catch up here from David. Neither player hitting this flop. Jack 4-3. Matthew continuing the aggression. And we saw David float earlier, and he's going to choose to do so again. So David needing lots of help here, and he's going to get a little bit of a part of it there. That gives him an open-ended straight draw and a one-card flush with the queen. Matthew going to check the option here, and David going to take the betting lead here. I really do like that, picking up the equity. And David making all the right moves there makes Matthew lay that one down. So a float there with the king-queen offsuit does give him the pretty much the gin card without hitting the queen, the straight draw and flush draw. So David making all of the right moves and or having the best cards since we've come back from break. So yeah, Bryce in the chat, just a quick recap. You build your chip stack every month, throughout the month. Play your chip stack in the qualifier. Your stack is directly affected by how many tournaments you play in, how well you do in the tournaments, And you can also win chips by playing in our cash games. You get so many chips per hour played. And then we're going to have a nice, beautiful wheel in the room where you can win additional chips for things like high hands, maybe some aces cracked, or other things, other promotions we have going. But you're building up chips to play in the qualifier. And then in the qualifier, if you get in the top 15%, you make it to the 20K free roll. David, very, very sneaky check there with that queen high flop and his queen jack. Jonathan does have bottom pair and turns two pairs. So a sneaky check gone wrong there by David. So we may see. Oh, Jonathan is going to immediately raise this here. And David, who thinks his hand is underrepresented, is going to make this call. Unfortunately, he is in trouble here. A seven of hearts does not change much on the board. David's going to check it over to Jonathan. Jonathan's going to make a pretty decent bet there, 80 into 360. So it may be just juicy enough for David here to have to call. Could have got more. Jonathan definitely picks up the perfect turn card while David was trying to slow play that queen a little bit for value. Unfortunately, did not work. I don't hate the play four-handed, but Jonathan just picking up that second pair to get just past David there. So Jonathan picking up his biggest pot of the night. Much, much needed here four-handed with these blinds at 10 and 20,000. So I think that was the first scratch there on David. He has been on fire for most of the tournament. Again, Minnesota Mike there in the box for this Road to Vegas Championship. Poker House's premier live stream dealer. Jonathan W. with the newfound chips. He's going to limp in to Matthew again. He likes to try to see a flop in the small blind. And Matthew's going to check the option this time, so they are going to go to the flop with a 7-4 jack. Jonathan with a gut shot. And the 9 does get there. So Jonathan on a little bit of a sun run here, getting the 9 to pull ahead and getting the open-ended to get some chips. No, big lay down there. Matthew picking up the open-ended on the turn, but does not chase it. So Jonathan picking up the only card he can to get the lead in that pot, other than an 8, and big lay down there for Matthew. So you can see it right there. Matthew's playing for that ticket. He's not chasing. He is going to use that chip stack that he has to his fullest advantage and not chase down that open-ended straight draw that he picked up on the turn there. We can have a look at the chip stacks here. David with a little over 600,000. Jonathan now a little over 700,000, who also picks up the Queen 10 of spades on the button here. And he's going to limp in again. Matthew, a little over 600K in chips, does complete these small. And then Matthew M with just under 500K in chips. We're all going to see a flop here three ways again. Queen 10 deuce. Jonathan is smashing this flop top two pair. He's going to immediately bet this out on the button here. It could look like a position bet, but unfortunately, neither one of the Matthews picking up anything that they can defend. So it's going to be pushed right through there to Jonathan, but he does pick up a couple more bigs there, taking the small and a big blind who completed into that pot. So Jonathan on a huge run up here, coming back from a break. Things are definitely going his way after the break here. Chips are moving. Hand number 48. We're a little over an hour and a half into this final table where we started with 9 players down to 4. Matthew in the small blind looking down at King 5 offsuit. Elects to complete to the big blind. David S. going to check his option with Queen 7 of diamonds. Ace 5 9 on this flop. Bottom pair for Matthew is going to check through to a turn. A king on the turn, allowing Matthew to turn 2 pairs. Going to have to start doing some betting now, and it may get some action as David picks up the nut diamond draw with his Queen 7 of diamonds. Let's see if David wants to chase with 10% of his stack. Takes a long look at those diamonds, and he's reaching for chips and does make that call. So Matthew here in the lead, trying to dodge a diamond, fills up on the river. Going to seem like a gen card for him, but unfortunately David just doesn't have anything to battle with, and he shows him the full house, but saying please have something there, but unfortunately David was just on a diamond draw, so David's little run good may have started to slow down here. David is picking up pocket eights in the small blind. Just going to limp this in here, try to see a flop. Jonathan going to check his option, 10-3 offsuit. David in the lead with the pocket eights, but unfortunately has no idea where Jonathan is at, being able to just check the option there in the big blind. Jack, Queen 5 on this flop, check, check. Eights still in the lead on a very scary board, 4 eights. Still goes check, check on the turn. 7 on the river doesn't change much of anything. So if he can get a check, check showdown here, David's eights will be best. Jonathan just does surrender the hand, turn it over the 10 high. David S. with the pocket eights going to pick up the big blind there, courtesy of Jonathan. So again, lots of people in the chat on YouTube and Facebook. Let us know. There's 4 left. Who are you rooting on? Chip stacks have been swinging pretty wildly, but with these blinds of $10, $20, and $20,000 ante, it is by far still anyone's game. Again, if you are just recently joining us, this is the Road to Vegas Championship, a $10,000 main event seat ticket to the winner, the world's most prestigious poker tournament, a $10,000 entry into the World Series of Poker main event in Las Vegas starting in a couple weeks here. There's also a $1,000 cash prize to second, a $500 cash prize to third, and a $250 cash prize to fourth. And Jonathan limping it again under the in the small blind into Matthew. Matthew's going to check it. So Jonathan just trying to get to a flop with Matthew, and Jonathan picks up the second pair of 5s there. Matthew going to bet this one out, the gut shot wheel, and Jonathan's going to let that one go. So Matthew there picking up the chips there from Jonathan. Interesting dynamic between those two. I'm curious to see how it's going to play out if they get down to 3 or possibly even heads up. Jonathan taking more of a conservative approach, limping in the small blind, trying to get to a flop as cheap as possible. And Matthew has allowed it a few times and raised him up a few times. And the few times he's raised him, Jonathan has had to lay it down. So curious to see how that dynamic continues. David S. picking up pocket 3s, goes ahead and lays them down under the gun. Either play them pretty aggressive or not, and it was a good choice because Matthew G wakes up with pocket 7, going to raise it up to 60,000 here. Matthew 7 deuce, everyone's favorite. does not get to play with his pocket sevens. So Matthew picking up another big blind there from uh, the other Matthew. Question in the chat: can you bag at Peaks and Fort Worth? Absolutely. Anywhere, any flight, bag and tag, combine two. They're at two different locations, but you can play at either one of them. Happen to be where you're at. All 8 flights will be played simultaneously at Poker House Peaks and Poker House Fort Worth. And why not? Why stop at two? Get three and get that 500 triple bag bonus and free roll yourself into day two. Matthew on the button there raises up to 60,000. No takers in the blinds. So Matthew G still picking up more blinds there, bringing up Tim to a little over 700K in chips. Again, chips are flying, but it is still anyone's match here, as they're all still pretty close. 720 for Matt G, 710 for Jonathan, 525 for Matt M, and 525 for David S. So they're all four right there close to one another. So this is still anyone's match. Hand number 53 in about an hour and 45 minutes of this final table championship. Blinds are 30 minutes long. Saw them raise up after the break to 10, 20,000 with a $20,000 ante on top of that. So every big blind definitely is heavy as Matthew raises it up from the button position here with King and Jack suited, trying to scoop up some of those blinds to get through some orbits, and it does work. And once again, we see Jonathan limping in with the king queen suited, and Matthew immediately raising. Again, this dynamic has played out so interestingly, and Jonathan W lays it down, king queen suited. I, I'm okay. Jonathan, he's sitting there. I'm not. He has a plan. I do not. Lip it in under the small blind, and Matthew has punished him for it a few times and allowed it to go through. And then he's raised him a few times and he's laid it down. So Jonathan just trying to get to free flops or cheap flops here against Matthew. And I really thought that would have been the first time he was going to continue with him, but he chose not to. And that's okay. These guys are playing for a very, very big prize. So you're going to be as careful as possible to not be one of the next few out, because while we do have a little bit of a cash prize for second, third, and fourth, we're definitely going to be playing for that $10,000 ticket. So taking some careful steps by some of these players here, but David's not going to be careful with this one here. Going to raise up with ace 10 of diamonds. Looks like to 60,000 here to pick up some blinds. It's going to fold around to Matthew in the small blind, who's going to come along with ace queen. So two big hands here going to a flop. The ace queen definitely under repped and in the lead on this 9 king 8 flop. Does miss both players, but David had the betting lead at pre. Matthew looks like he checked. No, Matthew's going to lead out here. So he's going to take the betting lead away from David. And David, who has floated a couple times on these flops, we've seen it, has a lot of good turn cards, but he does lay this one down. So hey, he has been prone these last little bit to coming along with some maybe not good, made made hands or draws, but it's just some overcards that have a lot of good turn cards. But he does lay that one down. We are still four-handed. The chips are about as effectively even as they can be with these blind levels. Jonathan picking up Queen 10 suited under the gun here, going to raise it up to 60,000. Somebody show that guy how to do it in the small blind for me. But he does pick up some blinds there that he has given away, so gets him back a couple orbits there. Again, each one of these guys taking home a little bit of cash, $250 for the next person eliminated, $500 for third place, and a $1,000 bill for second place. But of course, that first place is what they're all playing for, that $10,000 main event ticket to the World Series of Poker in just a couple weeks. Battle of the Plans as two players fold to David with King 3 offsuit going to limp in. Jonathan looking down at Ace 8 of hearts. It looks like he's going to raise it up here in the big blind against David. And David with the snap fold there. So another good pickup there by Jonathan W. If you are watching these final four or listening to me commentate on these final four and you're nearby Burleson, Texas, Poker House Fort Worth, we've got some cash games going. You can come play in some cash games and watch these four battle it out live right here on the floor. See them play down to the $10,000 main event ticket winner. Like I said, cash games are going right now. And Jonathan chooses not to limp in on that one, lays that one down, just surrendering the small blind there to Matthew. And again, don't forget, we have our $1,500 free roll tonight at 6:30. The Chipapalooza, Sundays, Mondays, I believe Thursdays and Saturdays. Of course, it will be on hold later in the week for our $50,000 guaranteed Summer Jam $65 entry tournament that will supersede any other scheduled events. David with a very pretty Jack 10 of hearts limps in to try to see a flop. Jonathan's calls as well on the button. Matthew, Ace 10 calling as well. So Matthew M is going to check his option here. So we're going to actually see our first four-way to a flop. A family pot, as they say. It's a pretty valuable pot. Four bigs in the pot on a 7 Ace 9 board. Matthew G taking the lead with his Ace 10. Going to go ahead and bet this out for 80,000. Matthew M laying it down. Jack 10 lays it down, and everyone else lays it down there. And so Matthew, and he shows the ace. So that's a couple times there. Matthew has shown his cards and shown strength in his turnovers to try to be able to tell the story later if he decides to run a bluff, showing everyone the goods so far. Matthew G has pulled a little bit away from the pack at 930,000. Jonathan at 690. Matthew M just south of 500,000, and David S just south of 400,000. So these guys are starting to pull away, starting to see a little bit of difference in the chip stacks, but they are all still good enough for a good double up, and lots of things switch places, especially with these blinds. Jonathan under the gun, feeling a little bit loose, raises it up to 80,000 with his three deuce offsuit. Matthew lets the button go, queen five. Matthew M lets the ace deuce go, and David S lets the Brunson go. And so Jonathan, well timed aggression there to pick up a small and a big blind. Under the gun and gets his blinds paid for the next couple hands. You see 3 out of the 4 players there all having pretty equal VPIP. No one really being the table captain out of these 4 yet. All players have had a little bit of aggression, played some decent hands differently. Matthew W on the button, picking up a queen 9 offsuit, puts his card protector on the hand. Looks like he's going to be playing this one. In fact, I'm going to raise it up to 80,000. The blinds have gone up 15, 30, and $30,000 ante. Jonathan wakes up in the big blind with pocket nines and chooses to complete. So we're going to go queen 9 versus pocket nines. 8, 5, ace on the board. Pocket nines are still best. Jonathan, not afraid of the ace out there. Going to bet to see where he is at. Goes ahead and makes a bet immediately. And player does fold. So Jonathan picking up some more chips there. Definitely pulling away here. Puts him pulling away from 2 of the players, Matthew M and David, 390 and 300 for them respectively, while Matthew G and Jonathan hovering around the 900K mark. So 2 players starting to separate away from the other 2. But again, blinds are 15, 30, and a $30,000 ante. So each pot is a pretty massive swing here. Going to need to see a player make a pretty big move to start moving the needle on some of these chip stacks with the blinds this high. And Matthew here choosing to do so. Ace 9 offsuit, raising it up to 75,000. David S waking up with a real hand on the button, the Ace King offsuit, putting Matthew in a tough percentage position here. And David does disguise the strength of his hand a little bit there by just calling. And Matthew G, Ace Queen suited. Now we've seen him make some pretty good laydowns, but not this time. He looks like he is going to 3-bet here to a lot, an effective all-in or fold situation for the other 2 players. Now Matthew M was the initial raiser here for 75. Asking for a count here of Matthew G's bet. I don't think Matthew M can call here, but he did put a pretty significant chunk of his chips in play. But I'm not sure he wants to put it in here with ace 9, and he does a fold. Now David is going to snap go all in here with the ace king, so kind of knew that was coming and underrepresented his hand with just the flat with the ace king, and so well behind Matthew G. David S is in it, and a couple kings on the flop there definitely helps to lock this one up. So David S kind of slow played the ace king there, and it definitely going to get a maximum value here as he flops 3 kings and gets the full double up courtesy of Matthew G, who decided to squeeze the ace queen suited definitely correctly, by the way. With the ace queen of clubs, played it just fine, but unfortunately David snuck in there under the radar with the ace king to put him in a bad position on that hand. So just like I was talking about, some big swings in chips is easy to do with the blinds this high. Hand number 63 here by Minnesota Mike. And we're starting to see things shake up just a little bit. David is now at a little over 700,000. Jonathan picking up pocket tens on the button, just under 900K in chips, going to raise this one up. No, he's not. He's going to limp in with the pocket tens here, maybe to try to see a flop. Matthew G getting to see a flop with 8-5. And Matthew M checking his option of Jack 5 offsuit. So Jonathan in the lead with pocket tens, looking really to dodge a Jack to stay in the lead. And he's going to easily do that by seeing a 10 directly in the window, flopping a full house. Let's see how he can extract maximum value here. He does check the flop. Well done there. Unfortunately, Matthew and the other Matthew just not picking up much to contend with, so it's going to be hard for him to extract any value here. But he did get Matthew G to bet out as he makes an 8. Pair of 8s on that turn. Instant fold there by the other Matthew. And now Jonathan here. Is it time to spring the trap here? Is he going to raise it up or just come along slowly here? It looks like he's just reaching for calling chips, and he does. Going to give Matthew G a little bit of rope here to see if he'll make a bet on this river. Ace on the river does not change either one of their hands, but Jonathan feels like he can maybe get some value in case Matthew hit the ace, but he did not. Matthew checks and folds to Jonathan's bet, but still a very healthy pot there for the chip leader to pick up. Couldn't see if he showed his tens there, but definitely went his way on that hand there to increase his chip lead. Got maximum value, I think, out of that hand with the check on the flop and allowing Matthew to make a pair on the turn and at least get another bet out of Matthew out of the deal. But no other player had anything else to make any value from. That puts Jonathan almost to the million chip mark. Folds his 3 deuce. Matthew down close to the $500,000 mark. Picking up pocket queens, raising it up to 75. Almost a little more than a min click there. Matthew not waking up with anything, and David not waking up with anything. So pocket queens goes unrewarded other than blinds, which is still super important, putting him at the 600K mark. Again, with blinds like these, no chip lead is safe. This is the end game of tournament play, where you have to catch some cards, maybe play aggressive in a few spots, see who is playing a little bit timid for that $10,000 main event seat where you can pick up some blinds. But end game tournament poker requires some experience, some situational awareness, looking to see where the chip stacks are, where the blinds are, and patterns of the players that you've been watching play right alongside you for these 65 hands of this final table. Matthew G under the gun, looking at queen, jack off suit, reaching for chips. Looks like he does min raise to 70, a little bit more than min raise, and no one else picking up anything there. So getting the valuable blinds and antes. I believe that's twice now this final table that he has had pocket queens with no flop to be seen. But with these blinds, it's good to be dragging in as many pots, no matter the value at all. You're definitely picking up some more orbits. 915,000 in chips for Jonathan and Matthew M in the 2-seat, just under $250,000. David and Matthew G both floating around almost 6.5, 700,000 in chips. So Jonathan is starting to try to pull away just a little bit from the other 3 players. 8-4 offsuit. Does the limp-in strategy again against Matthew G. This time Matthew's going to check it, so they are going to go to a flop 8-4 versus queen deuce. And a ace queen 6 flop, flopping best here for Matthew with second pair. Does go ahead and lead this out, and Jonathan is going to fold this immediately, and Matthew G picks up a couple more bigs there. Again, the play on these 4 players is definitely very meticulous. They're definitely picking their spots, not going too crazy. But I think that is very much expected when you are playing for a prize of a $10,000 ticket into the World Series of Poker main event. You don't want to be the next few out. King 10 suited for David S. Under the gun here. Gonna limp in. Matthew G with the Jack 8 offsuit going to complete the small blind, giving Matthew M the option who chooses to check his 9 deuce suited. So we're going to go 3 ways to a flop. David S best with the King 10 of spades. And it does flop a king, but there's an ace and a 7 out there with it to scare things along. But he's going to continue to see where he is at by betting out here. It looks like 100,000. And you're going to get 2 folds out of the players there. So picking up 2 additional big blinds there. David S pulling away from the other 2 competitors, David S. and Jonathan. 2 hours now into this final table of 9 that we started with. We had just over 100 players playing in the Road to Vegas Championship yesterday. We played from a little over 100 players down to the final 9. And all 4 of these players remaining are in some prize pool money of some sort. Again, the $10,000 seat, obviously, for the winner. And we are doing $1,000 cash to second place, $500 to third, and $250 to fourth. So each one of these guys getting at least a little something for their efforts and their performances in yesterday's and today's tournament event. Great play by a lot of these guys. Matthew M limping in with 6-5 offsuit. David S going to check his option with 4-3 offsuit. Minnesota might bringing us to a flop with 2 very similar hands of 7-9-7. Gut shot for Matthew. Not much left there for David, but does do a check on this flop to a 6 on the turn. That's going to give a pair to Matthew, who is going to go ahead and bet this out, and David immediately has to fold. So Matthew picking up a big blind there.
Sat down in your seat earlier, and I was like, wait a second, this ain't right.
Matthew M there just picked up that pot. He was the player that only started the tournament with 4,000 in chips. Unfortunately, it did not make it to many of our tournaments for the last couple of months, so didn't have a lot of chips accrued for this championship. But it doesn't take a lot. You just got to get a little lucky early, get a decent hand, get a double, triple up, move on up. Started with only 4,000 in chips and finds himself down in the final 4 in the money, and still very much alive for this $10,000 seat, which could be worth millions in the main event World Series of Poker. David is going to complete the small blind with the Jack Deuce of Diamonds. Jonathan going to check his option with the Brunson 10 Deuce of Diamond, 10 Deuce of Hearts. So looking for a 10 or a lot of hearts to try to take away this hand. Ace 7 4, 2 diamonds on board for David. He's going to check. Jonathan's going to lead out here to try to take this one away from David. A bet of 60,000 is called by David with his diamond draw. Queen on the turn, spade does not help either player. Jonathan going to pick up, continue the aggression here, telling a story of an ace. And David looking down at the diamonds here and decides to let it go. So fantastic betting there by Jonathan, keeping the pressure on. And that should put him over the 1 million chip mark, or darn near close to it for Jonathan. Hand number 70 here in this final table. 4 players left. Blinds are 15,000 to 30,000 with a $30,000 ante. So a good 75,000 chip swing every orbit. So each pot is definitely valuable to pick up. Jonathan going to limp in again to Matthew, and Matthew's going to immediately raise him up with the ace three. Jonathan, who has laid down these turns, continues to do so, just trying to see a cheap flop. Just trying to see a cheap flop against Matthew, and has not been very successful at it, as Matthew has immediately raised him in the big blind out of the completed small blind chips. Again, the dynamic continues between those two, so I'm curious to see how that eventually mix it up. At some point, Jonathan may limp in with a monster, and Matthew raise it up, and he comes back over the top, gets paid for his history on that, or vice versa. Matthew may be able to catch him in a trap with a good hand by letting him limp into a flop. We'll see what happens, see how they decide to play this dynamic out. It's been pretty consistent and interesting. And now Jonathan's going to pick up a real hand here, ace, king of clubs on the button. Looks like he's raises it up to 90,000, 3x the big there. Matthew picking up pocket sevens and lays it down, lays the pocket sevens down. So that's just shows you guys these guys are playing for something real. It's not just a top prize of a $10,000 ticket, but it's a $10,000 ticket into the World Series of Poker main event, which could be worth millions of dollars. So keep that in mind. These guys are picking and choosing their spots meticulously. They're playing for a fantastic, fantastic prize to get to go to Las Vegas and play in the main event, a big bucket list dream for lots of poker players. So they're definitely picking and choosing their spots. And to be fair, Jonathan has been spending most of the afternoon limping into him. And so when he does raise pre-flop, he does show quite a bit of strength. So fold there by Matthew brings him to the button of the next hand with 8-5 offsuit. Lets that one go. Matthew M goes ahead and rips this one in for 135K with 10-9 suited. David S. He does make the call. Okay, there. So King, Queen offsuit going up against Matthew's 10-9 suited. So this is going to be a pretty big hand. 10-6-4 brings the lead out for Matthew with the pair of tens. One heart will bring the pot back home to David. Six of diamonds doesn't change anything there. Looking for a king, queen, or heart, and it does get the heart there. So David is going to take that one down with the one card heart flush to take down Matthew M. Big swing there. Matthew M played fantastic. I like the push there. Wanted to try to get some folds in and get the stack in before he got too low and loses his fold equity to the other players. Puts it in with 10-9 of clubs, does take the lead on that flop, but David S runs out the hearts to take that. And now there were three players left for this $10,000 main event ticket seat. Matthew, Jonathan, and David.
C4 coming up for money. Or C2 is position.
And as you hear some of the chatter at the table saying pretty good run for only 4,000 in chips into the qualifier. Players take a quick breather, loosen up, chatting, folding, as they all get one more closer to that main event ticket.
Holding out for hero, and I see you walk in, and Mike is here. My hero has arrived. Shrek, you are here.
Blinds are 15,000, 30,000 with the 30,000 ante. So we definitely still have anybody's game here. David S. A little over 700K makes the fold. Jonathan, who has reached that 1 million mark with a suited King 10 in that small blind, big blind dynamic with Matthew G, limps it into Matthew G, and Matthew G immediately raises it up like every time he has before. But this time, Jonathan has the King 10, and Matthew has a real hand as well. So he's going to 3-bet him here. So this is that dynamic that I was talking about, to see what happens when they have actually real hands. And immediately saw some fireworks there. So it was a limp bet re-raise call. So a big pot here as that dynamic did finally reach a little peak there between the two of them. Just what we were waiting to see what happens. Ace 6-6. Matthew's going to flop best here. Jonathan looks reaching like he's reaching for chips to continue his aggression. I don't see Matthew going anywhere here. A bet of 130,000 immediately called by Matthew. So a very tough spot here for Jonathan. Can he continue to try to get him off this hand? I don't think Matthew's going to go anywhere though. Uh, Gosh, 700,000 in the middle. So this is the clash we were waiting to see. Jonathan, he does check it. Yeah, he was really reaching there and decided against it at the last minute. Much with a good decision. Matthew goes ahead. Yeah. So that was it. That was the dynamic that I was speaking of, waiting to see what happened there when they both wake up with some real hands and a huge chip swing there for Matthew. Again, Jonathan limped into the small blind as he was tending to do, and Matthew re-raising to get a fold out of Jonathan, but this time they had good hands each, and so Jonathan raise and then an immediate call by Matthew, and then Jonathan makes a couple stabs at that pot. And they are doing a chip count update there with the boots so we can be as accurate as possible for you guys, especially when things happen that quickly. Jonathan now back down to about 700K. It lays down the four deuce on the button. Matthew, who is now creeping up towards the million mark on that major chip swing, calls with 9-6 suited. David S checks his option with ace 3 offsuit, and we see a flop of 3-3-9. Fireworks incoming. Matthew flopping top pair. David with a 3 with the ace kicker, deciding to slow play it at that $55,000 bet there by Matthew and just slow called by David. Matthew checks. David's going to go ahead and announce himself here with a $125,000 bet, and Matthew's got to feel like something's wrong here, and he does, and makes a good lay down there. Kind of half showing the 9, and David getting really good value out of that flopped trips there with the 3. So good little stab there on the flop by Matthew, and a good lay down or check and then lay down to David's bet while he continues the aggression. And we are on to hand number 76 as we've seen quite a few fireworks in the last few hands. Matthew is still in lead with a little over 900,000. David S creeped back up with that pot a little over 800,000. And Jonathan right behind with 700,000. Still anyone's tournament. No one running away with this. Any pot changes the landscape with the blinds this high, 15, 30, and 30. Deuce 6-8 on a limp checked pot here with 5-4 for Matthew, who flops the double or gutter. Jonathan, who also has a gut shot with some club back doors with his 10-7. Deuce on the turn doesn't help anyone, so let's see if Matthew continues the aggression here. He chooses not to as it goes check to the river. Jack does not change anything. First better could have taken this one down, and it looks like Jonathan's going to take that in position here by betting 80,000. And Matthew, unfortunately, unless he chooses to play back at him, which he does not, Jonathan is going to pick up that pot and creep back up closer to the other 3. So pretty Pretty exciting poker here. Not really. It's still too close to call by any stretch of the imagination with these four. There's these three guys left. Only one of them can take home that $10,000 ticket to the main event, the World Series of Poker. David S. on the button here, folding his King 7 offsuit. Jonathan W. King Queen limps in again into Matthew, who has 5-3 offsuit. Matthew going to punish him again, but this time Jonathan's going to come along with this one, unless he's going to 3-bet him again. What an interesting dynamic these two have built. And he does. So it is going to be a limp raise from Jonathan, but this time Matthew doesn't have it. So it's going to be a tough continue there. So the dynamic continues and shifts every time. Jonathan does show the King Queen offsuit. It's been crazy to watch. The limp raise fold, limp raise call, limp raise re-raise. The small blind, big blind dynamic between these two is playing out interesting, just as I predicted, and does continue. Jonathan on the button with Jack 8 suited, right at 900K in chips. Looks like he wants to play this hand. Limps in to see what can happen, see if it try to see a cheap flop, and we are going to go three ways to a flop. Ace, Queen, 8, rainbow flop. David flopping second pair. Jonathan flopping bottom pair. 6 on the turn as it checks through. Matthew goes ahead and bets his now second to last pair of pocket eights. David, who has second pair with the ace out there, tough to call. And Jonathan's going to lay this one down as well. So the worst hand wins through aggression, as is pretty common. And the beeps on screen there tell me that the blinds are going up in the tournament. So we're going from small, big, big to bigger, biggest, and biggest. I believe it should be 20 and 40 as the graphics update. Queen 4 suited for Matthew, raising it up to 800 on the button. Going to get David to lay down the small blind. Jonathan needing 50,000 more to call from big blind. Shows it and lays it down. David S on the button here with pocket threes. Raising it to 80 min raise there. Jonathan makes the fold. Matthew in the big blind matches the min click, and we're going to go 50-50 to a flop. David S in the lead with pocket threes, looking to dodge a king or queen. Queen does come out on the board. It is second pair. David going to continue the aggression on the button as Matthew checks it to him. So it's going to be tough to call this second pair with the ace out there. We'll see if Matthew does make the call, which he does. So 125,000. So a real pot here, 10 on the turn. Let's see if David can continue the aggression with the threes. It does not. It goes check, check. So Matthew's going to feel a lot better about his second pair of queens there. Um, he does check the option over to David. David's just going to try to get to a cheap showdown and see that he has been bested by the king queen of Matthew, putting Matthew over the million chip mark, an almost half a million chip pot. The blinds are 20, 40, and 40. So even in the blinds and the annies, we're talking about 100K pots here. So this stick around. This isn't going to last much longer. These guys are going to have to put in their stacks and find the best positions to do so with the most equity to try to get that $10,000 main event seat. Moves are going to have to be made and made pretty soon as the blinds have gotten up, as in most tournaments, to force a resolution. Jonathan on the button here looking down at pocket five, seeing as he chooses to play this. He likes to limp in, but it looks like he's going to take the min raise approach here, try to pick up the blinds without contestation on the pocket fives. Matthew going to defend with 8-6 offsuit, and we saw an 8-4 going to the muck there for David, so it takes out a couple of the outs there for Matthew. But let's see if he can take advantage of any scare cards, and there's a lot of them when you only have pocket fives. Queen, queen, 9 on that flop. Obviously does not hit Matthew, and if Jonathan, no, Jonathan's going to check this back, so we're going to go check, check on this flop here. Jack on the turn, still a card that's no good for either player. Matthew's going to check this here, and Jonathan's finally going to decide to see if he can take this down, probably betting 120, 130K here. Now it's only 105,000, almost a half pot size bet. Matthew here obviously can't continue regardless, so Jonathan going to pick up a decent pot there off of Matthew. We still have quite a few people here in the chat rooting on these last three: Matthew, Jonathan, and David. Still anybody's game with the blinds this high and the positions playing this well. This hand's going to fold around uncontested to Jonathan, who is creeping up on that million chip mark. Again, if you were just tuning in to this final finale run in this Road to Vegas Championship, these players, along with several hundred others, were compiling chip stacks by participating in free rolls and tournaments here at Poker House of Fort Worth based upon participation, how many tournaments you played in, how well you played. And then they brought those accrued chip stacks to a championship yesterday. Everyone had varying chip stacks to start with based on their participation for the last 3 months. David S. choosing to lay down the queen jack offsuit there on the button. Jonathan waking up with pocket nines on the small blind. Looks like he's going to raise this one up to 120. And Matthew with pocket nines as well. So we haven't, no indication of card reader error there, but so it looks like a pocket nines versus pocket nines. Jonathan does have the betting lead and does continue to keep that lead on this flop of ace, queen, 5. Going to be tough for Matthew to continue here. They have identical hands, but this shows everything about betting leads. And Matthew grabbing some chips here. Maybe he's going to try. Nope. He grabs some chips and then pitched the cards with the other hand. So that would have been a great test of resolvement for Jonathan if Matthew would have come along and or raised. So 2 identical hands. Shown what position and aggression does in this game, especially when you are three-handed playing for a $10,000 ticket into the World Series of Poker main event. But just as I was speaking about, that's how these guys got here, was playing in tournaments here at Poker House Fort Worth, accruing at chip stacks to play in a championship yesterday. And that is going to continue starting tomorrow. You're going to be able to build up chip stacks for a monthly qualifier based upon tournament participation and placement. But we have added a twist of the cash game play, also building up a chip stack, 500 chips per hour played in cash games. And we'll come back to that as Jonathan on the button here. It picks up pocket aces. Pocket aces three handed. Min raises it and no takers, maybe. David 4-3 in the big blind. Yep, nothing to happen there. So aces, unfortunately, don't get to be played. He chooses not to show them. That was so hard. You could tell he wanted to turn those over. You always want to turn over aces. He was really close turning that over, but it does pick up a valuable small and big blind. But you'll be able to build up your own chip stack based on participation in our tournaments, our free rolls, our cash games. There's going to be various ways to win vouchers for additional chips, but the goal is to accrue as many chips as you can into our qualifier tournament. We're going to have one qualifier tournament at the end of the next 3 months, three qualifiers. The top 15% get into a $20,000 free roll tournament. That's right, a $20,000 free roll tournament that you can qualify for and increase your qualification chances by building a monster chip stack by participating in our tournaments and playing in our cash games. Matthew folds the button. Dave is going to come along in the small blind with queen, deuce of diamonds, three deuce of spades for Jonathan. We're going to see a flop of six, ace, eight. Couple diamonds there for David, who has been sticky for at least a street with his flush draw, but these times he's going to go ahead and bet it out. Jonathan, unfortunately, lets that one go, not having anything about it. So good bet there by David to give himself an extra chance to win that pot by betting, and picks up a pot there, help him out. And coming next week, Poker House Fort Worth and Poker House Peaks, both hosting the $50,000 guaranteed tournament that is only a $65 entry. Yeah, that's right, a $65 tournament with a guarantee of $50,000. 8 flights, both at Poker House Fort Worth and Poker House Peaks, playing simultaneously together. And all poker players will try to get a bag and tag and come back to Poker House Peaks and play for that minimally $50,000 prize pool. A couple decent hands coming to a flop here. King, queen, 5, Jonathan with the ace, 10, Matthew, pocket deuces, betting this out here to see where he is at. And Jonathan's going to come along here and float with the call, 10 on the turn. Does give Jonathan a pair to take the lead. He checks it over to Matthew, who does check it back, taking the red flags from that called flop. 9 of clubs brings in the front door flush. It goes check, check, and Jonathan's going to take this away on the turn, and Matthew turns his hand down a little bit in frustration there, knowing he made the right bet on the flop, but Jonathan came across with the float and catches the 10 on the turn. 1.3 million now for Jonathan, 700,000 for Matthew. But with the blinds of 20, 40, and 40, it's still anyone's game. We have quite a few in the YouTube and the Facebook chats watching. Thank you for tuning into Poker House Fort Worth for this final Road to Vegas final table. We are down to 3 players. One of these guys will be taking home that $10,000 ticket into the world's most prestigious tournament, the World Series of Poker main event. Matthew has limped into the small blind under David's big blind, who picks up pocket aces, immediately raises it up, and does not get a caller, obviously. So a second hand of pocket aces we see unable to make it to a flop, but still picks up some valuable blinds. 100K in the pot every single hand. And these players are pretty close in chip stack. So it was 1.3 to about 700 to about 400. Ross in the chat there. What time is that $65 tournament start? It's going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 6 p.m. in either location, Poker House Peaks or Poker House Fort Worth. 6 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday we'll have noon flights and 6 p.m. flights in both locations. So day after tomorrow, the Summer Jam Flight A starts in both locations at 6 p.m. Again, it's a $65 entry, and you can take 2 bags forward to day 2. So you want to get your first bag early. Give yourself plenty of opportunity to take 2 bags forward, and for only $65 price point and a $50,000 guarantee, you definitely have the excuse to fire quite a few bullets into this tournament. A fantastic ROI. So 2 bags forward, and then if you do happen to get those 2 bags, you can go for that third bag and get the $500 bonus. Jonathan limps in on the small blind into Matthew's big blind as per usual. Matthew immediately raises him this time, and Jonathan does let it go. So the dynamic continues of Jonathan trying to see a cheap flop with Matthew, and Matthew denying it at that point with the ace king actually had the goods. But the last couple times, Jonathan has played back at Matthew. So Matthew may not be too inclined to be raising his big blind back into a limped Jonathan, because Jonathan twice has re-raised him. That's where we saw the big chip swing between Jonathan and Matthew. Jonathan has regained the chip lead after that engagement, though. He is sitting at 1.2 million, lays down the button. Matthew in the small blind with ace-7 offsuit. Looks like he's raising it up into David. David with a suited ace-3. And a suited ace wheel. Lots of people liking that hand these days. Difficult to continue, but he does anyway. So ace-7 versus ace-tray. 110 apiece in the pot. So over 200 in the pot right now. Jack-8, 10 misses both players. Gut shot for Matthew. David looking for some backdoor hearts. Matthew's going to continue the aggression here, betting 80,000. And David's going to let this one go. So 340K coming back Matthew's way. So Jonathan, 1.1 million, almost 1.2. Matthew at 960K, and David sitting at 280,000. So these blinds are really brutal for David right now. He's going to have to pick his spot and pick it pretty quick. It's in the small blind right here. Matthew folds on the button. David picking up queen 4 in the small. See if he wants to do anything with it here. Does not. Folds it over to Jonathan, who did have the goods. So it was a good non-shove there by David. Jonathan would have had him in disastrous shape in that hand. Hand number 92 on this 2.5-hour final table, Road to Vegas Championship final table. We started out the day at noon with 9 players, and we are down to the final 3, playing for that $10,000 main event seat to the World Series of Poker main event starting in the next couple weeks. Jonathan waking up with pocket queens, and he does keeps it consistent, limps into Matthew's big blind, but Matthew not waking up with anything here, so does not play back at Jonathan this time, but definitely has a disguised hand with the pocket queens. Jack 10-3, Matthew does not catch anything, but Jonathan does check, check, trying to let him catch up with something here. Deuce on the turn actually does make Matthew a pair. Jonathan's going to lead out into him for 100,000. Matthew could feel that any pair is good, only three-handed, but does lay it down. So that was one of those situations where that dynamic was set up to continue with that same sort of train wreck limping into the big blind. And but Matthew did not play back at him this time. So, like I said, it's been fun to watch, and got volatile a couple times just as expected. But I think Matthew should be by now sort of on to the games here to be try to understand that Jonathan is prepared to limp raise as they've had some fireworks, which may increase Matthew's range of just checking the option to see a flop, even with a larger holding. Jonathan on the button, raising it up with King Jack offsuit to 80,000. Matthew King Trey offsuit lets the small blind go, and David's going to jam this one all in for 275 with the same hand, King Jack offsuit. But will Jonathan make this call? It's a little over $250,000, and he only has about 1.2 in his stack, so not an easy call. He's going to cut these chips out and probably look to see how it still feels to have about 1 million in chips left. And he does make the calls. So King Jack versus King Jack. Both players have the suits covered for each other. So spades for Jonathan, hearts for David, and that's going to be it. So seeing a flop here of 10-6-3, rainbow flop. So this one's going to be chopped out here. And so they chop up the small blind, and that moves us on to hand number 94. Ross asking, each day will be $65 to buy in for the 50K. Ask all the questions you want, Ross. Yeah, each flight is $65, and it is a re-entry tournament. So if you happen to bust out within the first few levels, as long as I think we're going to have 3-hour registrations into this tournament. So it's in within the first 3-ish hours, you can rebuy back in for only $65. There's no add-on. So the 65 is all you're going to spend for each one of the entries you choose. However many bullets you wish to fire is up to you. But with a $65 price point, a $50,000 guarantee tournament, it's a heck of a deal. So you can re-enter the same flight for 65, or come back the next day and play in the next flight for $65. Absolutely, Russ. We'd love to see you for the free roll tonight. It's a $1,500 free roll here at Poker House Fort Worth. About 3.5 hours, we're going to get that started. We've got cash games going on right now. And the $1,500 free roll, the Chipapalooza free roll, starts at 6:30 tonight. Matthew on the button going to have pocket tens. See how he chooses to play this one here. 860,000 in chips. He's going to make it 130 to play this one. David lets his king 5 offsuit go. And as the computer catches up, we'll see what Jonathan wants to do here. And Jonathan re-raising with ace king as the graphics catch up to a surprise here. Looks like Matthew made the call as it was 3-bet by Jonathan to 340,000. So monster pot. This one is going to be a big deciding swing. Ace king versus pocket tens, and Queen 9 Jack open-ended flop for Matthew. Jonathan, it looks like such a good flop for Ace King, but it's not. And especially when Matthew is holding 2 of his outs to the Broadway. Matthew led out and an all-in there by Jonathan. So Yeah, all in a call. So here we go. This is a deciding pot. Ace King versus pocket tens on a Queen 9 Jack board. Matthew with the pocket tens ahead and open ended. Jonathan with the two overs of Ace King, looking for a 10 to make a Broadway or an ace and a king to take the lead in this pot. 7 on the turn does not help. Ace King and the river. A queen. So queens and tens is going to, if this is correct here, yep, going to double up Matthew there with the pocket tens. Jonathan made a run at it, and Matthew came along calling with that open ended. As you heard Jonathan say, a gutsy call there by Matthew. So huge swing there in chips. We'll get an update on that with the graphics as soon as that comes up. But that was a big turning point, and what happens in tournaments when you get down to 2-3 handed. The train wrecks eventually do happen as two players wake up with decent hands. Good jam there by Jonathan on that flop. It definitely favors his range pretty well, and good gutsy call there by Matthew on the open ended to take a lock hold on this tournament. David with 285,000 in chips. Jonathan left with 335,000 in chips. Limps in to Matthew, who is up to 1.8 million with 6 deuce offsuit. Checks Jonathan's limp to a flop. So both players in 440. Queen Jack 10 flop. Obviously a big miss there by Matt and Jonathan with the top pair. Seven on the turn does not change anything as it goes to bet call. Check on that turn. 4 of hearts does not help Matthew, and you see if he continues. Jonathan is going to go ahead and lead out this time for 120 or 115,000 here, and Matthew is going to fold this one down. So getting a few of those chips back for the bets he lost over to Matthew in the last hand. Matthew taking a commanding chip lead with that pocket tens versus ace king hand. Jonathan is still with a 500,000 in chips, a little ahead of David. Matthew coming along with 10-7 offsuit. David checking his options with the ace-3 offsuit, both headed to a flop of 9 Jack 8. Gin flop for Matthew. 7, 8, 9, 10 at Jack. David S. unfortunately has nothing to come along, so Matthew's going to bet into that, and David's going to go away. So the flopped straight does not get to pay off, but does still pick up another big blind and chops down David a little bit further. Hand number 97 here at this final table. Just under 3 hours for these 9 players to play down to these final 3. All 3 players are in the money. Fourth place got paid $250. Third place is going to be $500. Second place, the $1,000 cash prize. But they're all vying for that first place prize. The whole reason the tournament existed, the Road to Vegas World Series of Poker main event ticket seat worth $10,000. All 3 players now limping in, coming to a flop of ace queen 8. Matthew with top pair with the deuce kicker. That's 80,000. Don't think yet no action out of either player. So that might put Matthew at the 2 million chip mark. Jonathan having 435,000 chips and David at 165. So David looking for an all-in hand very, very soon. With the blinds at 20, 40, and 40, that's $100,000 in orbit. So he can only see a couple more orbits without being all in. So David with only 165 needs to find something here, especially I think he's in the big blind at this hand as well. So he's got a good quarter of his stack in. Oh, he's in the button this time, so he can do a free fold there. Jonathan with the king jack offsuit limps in to Matthew's big blind. Matthew checks his option. Both players to a flop queen 8 versus jack 10 on a 10 ace 5 board. Jonathan flopping a gut shot. Matthew, queen 8, so queen high. Deuce on the turn changes nothing, so who can show the aggression on this hand? Looking for a queen or an 8 for Jonathan, does not get there. But Jonathan's going to bet this out. I'm sorry, Matthew had the queen 8, so Jonathan's going to bet his king high, which is best here. And Matthew's going to look him up with the queen high. I love it. This is a little spicy call there by Matthew, who shows the world, hey, I just called you with queen high. A little bit of spice there out of nowhere from Matthew. I love it. Queen high is good there often if your opponent doesn't have a pair three-handed. So a little spicy call there by Matthew with the queen high, looking up Jonathan, who unfortunately did have absolutely nothing as predicted, but happened to have the king. So David here going to be needing to make a move in the big blind with about a quarter of his chips in the big blind. Jonathan on the button with ace 9 offsuit, just under 600,000 in chips. Going to bet, raise this up to 80, min raise. And Matthew waking up with pocket aces. Here we go. How does this go? He's going to go ahead and announce it immediately, raising up. David going to go ahead and put in the rest of his chips. Didn't have much left. Goes all in for 125. So this is going to be big for Matthew. Let's see if he wants to, how he wants to proceed on this. If he wants to try to get Jonathan in on a side pot, as Minnesota Mike here cuts out the main for David with the 9-6 suited. David looking for a lot of spades to help catch up to the pocket aces of Matthew. Looks like we have about $100,000 side pot, so there's a little bit of meat on the bone left for these two to fight after. And we're going to see a flop of 4-4-8. That's going to be 2 spades for David, so he does have life against the pocket aces there of Matthew. Matthew's going to immediately bet this one out and isolate. Jonathan's going to let that go, and so now David is looking for a spade, and pretty much only a spade right now to play for his tournament life, to stay alive for that $10,000 ticket to the main event of the World Series. 10 on the turn. Does give some additional straight outs for David, but does not get there. So Matthew is going to take that down, and now we are heads up. Well played by David, who had a run of great cards and made some fantastic, well-timed bets to run deep into this final table, and will be rewarded $500 for his effort. Great run. Shout out to David. And we are now heads up for the $10,000 main event ticket seat, the most prestigious poker tournament in the world. Going to be played by one of these two gentlemen, Matthew and Jonathan. We are heads up for the main event ticket seat. The button is the first to act in heads up play. Matthew with the queen 4 going to just limp in. Jonathan is checking his option. Let the card reader catch up there to his hand. Looks like a Jonathan there with the card reader pick up there. So queen 8 versus queen 4. Limp and checked, headed to a flop of king at 9 at 5. Jonathan is still narrowly in the lead with the 8 player. Matthew lets that one go. And so Jonathan now has about a little over 300,000 in chips behind Matthew, well over the 2 million mark. So quite a bit of work here left for Jonathan. He's going to have to pick a spot here. And let's see if the limp dynamic continues. I called it about an hour ago. I said it would be interesting to see what happens if these guys get a heads up with Jonathan's limping bet strategy, trying to see cheap flops against Matthew. Let's see if that continues here. As Jonathan is on the button, this hand will be acting first. Ace 5 offsuit. And he does choose to limp in, so the dynamic does continue. So let's see how Matthew plays this. Waking up with pocket jacks, immediately raises it up 100,000. Jonathan with an ace, pretty strong heads up, does go ahead and make the call instead of the 3-bet. So we are going to a flop. Jonathan looking for an ace or a lot of 5s to catch up to the pocket jacks. Does not get there. Deuce, 9, 10. Matthew still in the lead with the pocket jacks and does go ahead and looks like puts Jonathan all in here. And Jonathan makes the call with ace high, which is good a lot of the times heads up, but unfortunately this time is not. So Jonathan here looking for an ace or running straight cards. King on the turn does not help. Ace and only an ace, or we're sending Matthew to Las Vegas, and that is what we are doing. Matthew G will be headed to the World Series of Poker main event. Congratulations, sir. Well played. Well played by Jonathan. Some fantastic play by both of these players to get where they are at. With Matthew coming out on top, headed to the World Series of Poker main event, the most prestigious poker tournament in the world, courtesy of Poker House Fort Worth and the Road to Vegas tournament. Again, over 100 people played yesterday that were qualified. 9 played down to a final table, and we are left with 1. Matthew G winning the $10,000 seat into the Road to Vegas Championship main event in Las Vegas, starting here in just a couple weeks. Congratulations to Matthew G. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Lots of viewers today for this tournament, and having enjoyed a really, really good final table. Again, Matthew G coming out on top, headed to Las Vegas to play in that main event. And for those not going to the main event here in a couple of weeks, we have a busy week ahead of us here at Poker House Fort Worth. The Summer Jam starting day after tomorrow. 8 flights, 2 locations, Poker House Fort Worth. And if you have been listening and watching from the Dallas area, Poker House Peaks running this tournament right alongside Poker House Fort Worth, where we will have 8 flights at each location, 12% paying tournament with 8% bagging and tagging to come to day 2, June 30th, next Sunday, 1 week from today at Poker House Peaks. There are 8 flights. You can carry 2 bags forward. And with only a $65 entry, it's a fantastic, fantastic value for a $50,000 tournament. Tell all of your friends, check out this tournament. It's the outstanding value. 2 bags forward. You can start firing your bullets day after tomorrow at 6 p.m. in either location. And if you can get that triple bag bonus, it's worth $500. That is all the better. So a $50,000 guaranteed tournament with only a $65 buy-in, starting up day after tomorrow at both Poker House Peaks and Poker House Fort Worth. Don't miss that. And also, don't forget our next point series where you can start accruing chips in our tournaments and now cash games for the $20,000 free roll. All the details on that will be on our social media. You can check that out at Poker House Fort Worth. You can send us a message if you have any questions, but do not miss this $50,000 guaranteed Summer Jam starting day after tomorrow at 6 p.m. at Poker House Peaks and Poker House Fort Worth. Again, thanks for tuning in to a fantastic, fantastic tournament. Congratulations again to Matthew. Best of luck and wishes to him in Las Vegas in the main event. We'll see you guys here at Poker House Fort Worth.